Today, we have the pleasure of hosting a very strong voice of impact. This voice is shaping the global narrative, the storytelling, and the public engagement at the UN. It's with great excitement that I would like to welcome Ms. Melissa Fleming, the Undersecretary General for Global Communication at the UN. Ms. Fleming's voice is not only organizational, she's also the author of a very interesting book about a Syrian refugee he got in a shipwreck at the Mediterranean, and the book called A Hope More Powerful Than the Sea. In addition to that, she's also a very famous podcaster, and she had her own podcast called Awake at Night. Welcome with us.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me and hosting me here, Mohammed.
And welcome to Egypt as well.
Thank you very much.
So,
You know, there is an Egypt chapter in the book, A Hope More Powerful Than the Sea,
really?
because it's about a Syrian teenage girl, and she and her family, the first place she fled was to Egypt.
Okay.
And there's a love story in Egypt. In Egypt,
yes.
she falls in love.
I will definitely gonna read this book. So, let me start with the first question. What keeps you awake at night?
Thank you. You asked the question that I usually ask on the other side of the podcast.
Yeah, how does it feel to be on the other side of the podcast?
I know, because usually I'm the one doing the interviews, and I actually, that's the name of my podcast, and I ask colleagues from across the UN system what keeps them awake at night, and
I know. I heard it.
yeah, and for me, it is probably a collection of everything that they say.
Yeah.
And I would say the common denominator is the wars that are causing just immense suffering for so many people, whether it's in Gaza or whether it is in Sudan,
of course,
or Ukraine. And there are more conflicts today than there have been in decades. And it's just the people, it's mostly civilians who suffer. It causes people to have to flee their homes, their communities, to lose their family members. But it also has ripple effects around the world. And it has an influence on geopolitics, on our economies. It makes it very difficult to achieve what we're setting out to achieve, and that is to make the world a more prosperous, more equal place. It is almost impossible if you have a war raging. So this is what keeps me awake at night.
But again, you have a big role in what keeps you awake at night with the wars and making the peace in a better place by leading the communication all over the UN. So what is the one thing that you want people to, or there was like a misunderstanding about the United Nations, and something you really would like to change the perception, the concept, or how they view the UN? What is the one big thing, in your opinion, about that?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that everybody working for the UN is there because they are committed to making this world more humane and better. And there is often a stereotyping of the United Nations, and it depends on who is doing the stereotyping.
Of course.
There are those who say the UN has failed to stop the wars without looking at how the UN is organized, and that it really is, when the UN doesn't stop a war, it's the Security Council that is made up of member states that didn't stop the war.
But they blame the UN, Security Council.
They blame the UN.
And maybe this is something you would like to clear about the function of the Security Council, because they think that the UN can tell the Security Council what to do, and they can actually enforce the laws and everything. So maybe this is an opportunity for our ordinary viewer can understand the role of the UN within the Security Council.
Well, the Security Council is there to prevent wars and for the maintenance of peace and security, and that means pretty much to prevent wars and to stop wars. And you know, we have one veto-wielding member of the Security Council who actually invaded it's a neighboring country. So it's it is their responsibility, and unfortunately, in some cases, they haven't lived up to their responsibility. And the rest of the UN, we do also have the General Assembly, which is becoming more and more empowered. If there is a veto in the Security Council, it can now go to a vote in the General Assembly. In every single member state, there are 193 member states, has an equal vote. So you can be the tiniest country, a small island.
Without the influence, of course, of the United Nations, right?
Well, it is in a way, member states are the United Nations.
Yeah.
That they are. It's
But
made up
the
of
people
member states.
perception, they think is the UN is something or an organization, and the member states is another thing.
It's a political organ of the UN. The member states also support us financially. The Secretariat and the UN agencies. So we're the ones who actually do the work. And we either, enable the meetings, run the meetings in New York. But we also run peacekeeping operations. We have UN agencies that are working on easing the suffering of people all over the world, whether it's feeding the hungry or housing the displaced or vaccinating children or educating children. Then we have development agencies that are working with countries that are unequally disadvantaged in many ways.
Yeah.
To help them, to lift them through our framework called the Sustainable Development Goals. So this is, in a way, a lot of this work is very invisible. Unfortunately, my job is to try to shine a light on this really important work because this is what is really changing people's lives.
So there was a lot of misperception or a contradiction about the SG's where he stands with the war, with the current war, especially with the Gaza war. And I recall that you mentioned something about people reaching out to him. Can you tell them the story once more?
Sure. Well, Mohammed, you asked me about also misperceptions, and that's another one. The UN
That's my next question.
has been approved of being anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
And so has the Secretary General. And the Jewish community was very convinced of this. And so, while he stayed throughout the last 2 years of the Gaza war, very clear and very steadfast and very factual about what was happening.
And he had an important saying in this, right? We need to be on the side of history.
We need to be on the right side of history. The right side of history is speaking truth.
So the SG said we need to be on the right side of history.
He said we are on the right side.
We are on the right. Okay.
We are on the right side of history because we are first of all risking our lives to help people who are living in the most horrific conditions ever
in the world
to survive this horrific war. And we are also going to report what we see, and we're going to demand more access. We're going to call out war crimes. And so, while saying this, it was, but with some populations conflated with anti-Semitism. And he said, no, we are not anti-Semitic. We fight anti-Semitism. And I was with him as he received I don't know how many hostage families who came to him.
He physically received
so many over these last 2 years. They actually saw through this, and they wanted to meet him and to tell their story of anguish and to listen to him also and to appeal to him to try to help get their family members released. And he relentlessly called for the release of hostages. He made lots of phone calls.
He even went to his residence.
With people of influence. Every Friday there was a protest
in front of his house.
In front of his residence.
Yeah.
And every Friday when he would leave for work in the morning, he would go out and speak to them and ask them and just listen to them And I remember one day it was raining, and he invited them inside, and they became, with one or two of them, they became almost friends. And so I think, he saw that he can feel the pain of also the Israelis who suffered the horrific attacks by Hamas on October 7th, the anguish that they were feeling over their loved ones being held hostage in Gaza. He can deeply also feel the pain of the Palestinian people, and that is what he was, really worked to express by
He made the balance.
consistently. It wasn't easy because
Yeah.
it was either you're on this side or you're on that side, and he's the Secretary General for all people.
Yes, he is. And he came here like 3 times, and he went to the borders, and I had the privilege to escort him in these visits, and I've seen how keen he is in delivering a moderate and delivering a balanced statement about where the UN stands in this, and where the UN wants to end the struggle, that they don't want any of the two parties to suffer, and he wanted to end it.
He wants an end. He's been calling from the beginning for a ceasefire, and for the civilians caught up in this to be able to survive, and that the UN to have access, the disinformation about UNRWA to be cleared. I mean, we've lost hundreds of UNRWA staff.
Of course.
It's been very, very sad and painful. So we are now UN agencies are back in Gaza in a big way, not as much as we'd like to be, but finally providing relief to people who are literally starving, and medicine for people who are very sick, who are wounded. And we're also, calling for, I know WHO has been instrumental, the medical evacuation of so many people. And I'd like to commend Egypt for accepting and taking into their hospitals so many patients, children who have had their limbs amputated. So we need, to this constant solidarity of the world going forward. And ultimately, we need a political solution, a two-state solution, so that both peoples can live in peace.
I would say that kept us all awake at night, trying to reach out a solution or helping all the people. So coming from this, I will talk about one of the your goals or missions or achievement, the misinformation. You saw the amount of misinformation that has been spreading around. People are getting the wrong information, wrong ideas, and then they're basing their judgment according to these misinformation. So you started a huge campaign against misinformation, started from COVID-19 all the way to the current situation. Yes. So can you tell us a little bit more about it as well?
Yes. Well, social media can be wonderful. It can connect us. We can get to know new people all over the world. We can meet up with lost friends. Unfortunately, social media has a real dark side, and it is weaponized by disinformation actors. And there is a distinction between disinformation and misinformation. Misinformation is sometimes innocent, spreading of rumors, but disinformation is deliberate.
Intense.
And this is where it's dangerous, when it's used to attack people, and when it's used to deliver a narrative that is based on lies.
It can even lead to wars, right?
It can even lead to wars, or it fuels hatred and polarization.
Very true.
It's really making democracies around the world more difficult. Elections have become much more less measured and more shouting matches over digital spaces. So it is an environment that I think we need to take very seriously as communicators and as institutions that are trying to make the world better, because that requires an information landscape that is healthy.
Yes.
It's just like our environment. If we have air pollution and water pollution, people can't live a healthy life. If you live in an information environment that is polluted with toxins, with hate speech, with lies, you lose one of the things that is the most valuable, and that is trust. Trust in institutions, trust in science, trust in facts. And if you don't have facts and you don't have trust, you don't have a shared reality.
But how can we do that?
How can we do that?
How can we counter
I think that people,
disinformation,
I think
misinformation?
we have come to a point where people themselves are demanding change. I mean, parents are really worried about their children. We're seeing more and more legislation coming into place because we have appealed to the social media platforms and now the AI actors because they can change their design easily.
Yeah.
They do it all the time, and they can tweak their algorithms
But
to protect.
do they want or not? That's the thing.
It's all based on profits. And unfortunately, what gets the most clicks is usually what generates the most outrage. And the design is there to addict. And so we need to be very aware of this. Children need to be taught in school how to navigate because I don't see the platforms changing. We need to really bolster public interest media to allow the trusted independent media that is providing rigorous factual journalism to be able to thrive. It's suffered a lot in the digital age, but we need this pillar of news media. And I'm really pleased I'm going to be attending the Egypt Media Forum. That's why I'm here.
That's my next question.
But I'll just say that as an aside, because there's one more point on the disinformation. And that is that we as the United Nations, or if you're a doctor, if you work for public health, we all need to get better at our own communications. We have to be as compelling as the disinformation actors. So we have to insert ourselves personally. We have to tell stories. We have to be relatable and to get people to care.
So can we create a I don't know, an organization, or we can do working with the journalist syndicates or the journalist groups, or can your office can start an initiative like this that can be actually giving them guidelines, how to do it, how to work on it?
Yes, we already have developed guidelines. They're called UN Global Principles on Information Integrity. This is our blueprint for a healthy information ecosystem. And of course, we're calling on our UN information centers, like the one that you work in here, to adapt these to localize them, because every country and every region is different.
Of course.
It has different challenges, but I think everyone believes and wants the same thing, and that is for our children to be protected from digital harms, and for our societies to have a shared reality of what is factual and what is information that is really based on science. I mean, vaccines are good for you, for example. Climate change is real. All of this is being disputed online, and it is
especially vaccines,
and it is the best. More people's lives have been saved with vaccines than anything. It's a miracle, vaccines. And we need to get better at reintroducing. I mean, it was like a given, but we can not take that anymore, for granted anymore. We need to communicate why vaccines are safe and why they're so beneficial.
So as an global expert, do you have an advice for families and parents how to guide their children and how to help them to get out of this craziness happening online?
I think it's very difficult for parents, especially individual parents. individual parents,
Yeah.
because there's so much peer pressure for kids. First of all, they want a phone at a very young age, and they say, all of my friends have it. And then they want to access certain parts of the internet, and they say, all my friends. So I think what really helps parents, if it's when the government provides some form of restriction. I know that Australia now has introduced an age limit for social media
Yes.
accounts.
16, I think.
I
or
think it's
15,
something like that
Yeah.
for, and I think it's really important that a lot of schools are now banning phones. Teachers have been reporting that they can't teach. I mean, and the kids are so distracted. And now kids going to schools where they can't have their phone during the day are feeling so relieved and are able to focus. And so I think there's it's a whole of society approach that needs to protect our children, and they need to demand that the social media platforms do things. There should never be content that promotes suicide, and it's full of content that
Yes.
promotes suicide.
Yes. Even
I've
games.
met parents. I've met two
You've
sets
heard
of
about
parents.
games as well. That there are
I've
certain
met
games.
two
Yeah.
sets of parents who lost their kids to suicide,
Oh, wow.
and they looked after their child killed themselves. They looked at their social media feeds, which was feeding them proactively
Pushing them.
how to do it, content.
Wow. Guiding you.
Outrageous. And the outcry, and they do public speaking. They've started foundations and organizations, and still very little has changed. So I think there needs to be a real all of society approach to this. If we can help the children, that's going to be going a long way. But I think there's a lot more that we need to do. The other thing is, again, we have to really call out the AI actors as well, because it's too easy now to create deep fakes. And these are, people are really starting to not really know what to believe anymore.
Exactly.
What they see, is it real? Is it not? If it's real, and it's very easy to deny if you're a politician or somebody, and it actually wasn't real, and they just say, oh no, it was fake, it was AI.
Yeah.
So it's hard to hold
that's
leaders to
that's the
account
easiest,
anymore.
yeah.
So again, return to trusted sources of information. That's my role at the UN, is really to ensure that the United Nations is a trusted source of information on so many areas of life that are important. You can come to our UN websites. You can, you can follow the UN on social media, and then you'll know that that information is verified and it's accurate.
Okay. Yeah, that's at least a good start.
Yes, and there are many other
Of course.
good sources of
that's
information. It's just really make sure you know
that's
what the origin is, and so you need to. There needs to be more education and literacy.
So for Egypt Media Forum, the one you're attending and giving the opening speech, do you have, as a global leader of communication for the United Nations, do you have a message that you want to give Egypt and also the international media that they are attending the forum as well?
That we respect deeply the profession of journalism. We think that it is absolutely critical for a healthy society to have fact-based reporting that is a trusted source of information, so that public interest media need to be bolstered. And so one of my messages is also going to be, because we live in the AI age now.
Yeah.
How do you think AI is so intelligent? 700 million people go to ChatGPT every day.
Of course, it's intelligent.
It's
for us.
because they have
Amazing.
scraped the information from the products of journalists,
Yeah.
the products of authors, and they've done it without compensating those journalists or authors.
Very true.
That has to stop. They need to be, because what's going to happen is that they'll lose their ability to produce journalism anymore, because all the money is gone. What makes them intelligent is journalists. So they need to be compensated. There needs to be licenses for that content. And so I just wanted to say that the United Nations really respects the news media, And it will also be a call to action for media organizations to also do responsible journalism, also cover the world.
Yeah, the communication integrity in this case.
Information integrity, but they also should do foreign reporting. And
Yeah.
the war in Sudan has been called the forgotten war. Maybe in Egypt it's reported a lot because you have so many Sudanese refugees here.
We're so close to it.
But in so many parts of the world, it's really forgotten. So we need journalists to tell the story.
So speaking of Sudanese and the refugees, we visited a refugee center belonging to UNHCR, and I was lucky enough to join you. You said one phrase, and I couldn't help not noticing it, and it stuck into my mind, that you were asking to, how should I put it, to turn statistics into real human stories. That stopped me for a bit, because sometimes in the UN we have numbers. We always look at numbers, statistics, figures, and all that. But it came like a reality check to me when you mentioned that we need to check the human story. So maybe you can shed some light about that part.
There is a saying, statistics are human beings with the tears dried off.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you feel any emotion when you read numbers?
Of course not.
No, no one does. And in fact, social psychologists study human behavior, and they've concluded that if you see too many big numbers, even if you intellectually try to feel something, what happens is psychic numbing. You feel numb.
Yeah.
And that's not what we want people to feel when we want to, our goal as UN communicators is to build empathy, to get people to care.
And also to help to show the truth as well.
But also to act, to do something, to maybe donate, to maybe show some compassion, to help their fellow.
Change perception as well.
Yeah. So the best way to reach people is to tell individual human stories. There is also a social psychologist who has concluded the more who die, the less we care.
Oh.
And it's not, again, it's just we're not wired to be able to feel compassion for huge numbers of people. But when you hear an individual story, it's much more relatable and much more easily to feel. And it's really important to show, when you tell that story, to tell the whole story, to tell the journey of what was that person before, what was that person's aspirations. It's like the story in my book of Doa, the Syrian teenage refugee who fled and had so many aspirations as a teenage girl, to study, and then had aspirations to continue those studies in Europe, and got on one of these horrible smuggling boats with 500 fellow refugees. And when it sank, she lost the love of her life, a fellow refugee who drowned before her eyes. But when she was rescued, after 4 days and 4 nights on the water, surviving on a child's floating ring, she had 2 babies on her chest that were not her own. They'd been entrusted to her by dying relatives. And one of those babies, Masa, survived, and so did Doa, where 500 of her fellow passengers had drowned.
Yeah.
It was considered not only heroic, but almost a miracle that the 2 of them survived and that she helped this baby survive. And so it really, I wrote this book about it, and it's been adapted in multiple languages. A new Arabic version is coming out soon.
Oh, that's good.
And it has captured the imagination of so many people because it is also inspiring, even though there's so much tragedy in it. But when they read the story, even people students, for example, in Midwestern the U.S. who were assigned to read it in a class, and I went and spoke to them. They'd never met a refugee. They'd never met a Muslim. They had no idea where Syria was on the map.
Of course.
They were saying, can we meet Doa? Can we do a video call with her? How is she? And then can you tell us more about the Syria war? And why are there why do they have to leave their country? Why doesn't my country accept more refugees? So it sparked their interest in the bigger story.
You created an interest, an awareness, empathy.
It's and there are so many of these stories.
Yeah.
There are so many. We just have to find them and tell them.
Yeah. And speaking of inspiration, because I think it's one thing leading us to the other topic. You had an amazing career coming from a journalist background all the way to leading the global communication of the United Nations. And for young females, especially in our region, they are facing a lot of, let's say, setbacks, a lot of not so much opportunities for them to reach their goals or to become someone like you, someone powerful, someone that is capable of delivering her message and making an impact on the entire universe. So the question is, what helped you to find the voice that kept you going when things weren't easy? Because I'm sure it was not an easy journey.
Oh,
And I'm sure that there was a lot of work and a lot of sweat and maybe sacrifices as well. But I'm also sure, knowing you now, that there was a voice was pushing you, was
absolutely. But
telling you to move.
it might not
Don't
even
stop.
My job might not even be for everyone. What I'd like to tell young
But
people,
it's inspiring as well, being
Yeah.
where you are.
I've loved every one of my jobs, either working, for regional security in Europe or nuclear non-proliferation at the IAEA, or for refugees at UNHCR, and now for the Secretary General at the UN. I love it because I'm working for a good cause. I go into work every morning and I know that I'm working for the benefit of humanity. And that's what I say to young people, is that when you choose your career, if you have the possibility, choose something that is going to help people, because it will be gratifying. You spend hours of your day at work. I mean, more hours than you'll spend with your family. You want to feel that what you're doing has some kind of meaning. Our lives are short. And even if you can't pursue, I mean, I'm talking about, there's a whole spectrum of professions,
Of course.
that serve humanity. If you work on healthcare, it is a gift. Education, teaching, science, developing cures for things or inventions that will further mankind. But if you have to do a job to pay the bills, that is just any job, then maybe there's something that you can do in your free time, to volunteer in the community to help people. I mean, you work for the United Nations. You're already
I've already
so
there.
I've been impressed, though, what you told me, what you do to help young cancer patients, terminal children.
Cancer, yeah.
As somebody who's a cancer survivor myself, it just really moved me, because I think those children probably feel very alone. I know they come from poor families.
Yes.
And you give them
Hope.
a dream, and some joy before they leave our life. And even you give the parents,
A break.
it's not more than a break. I think some kind of faith in humanity and that other people care.
Yeah, I told you that in the start of it, parents were asking me, "What's in it for you?" And they couldn't believe that somebody would just want to help. So what's in it for you? And whatever answer I give them, I saw doubt in their eyes until they saw it. They saw until it actually happened, and then they saw other kids and so forth. But it's not about me now, it's about you.
Well, but I've been inspired by that because the question is, what can you do?
Yeah,
And, you know, if you,
Yes.
it's something like that where you're giving a child a dream and you're doing this in your free time,
Yes.
which
Right.
I'm sure you don't have very much of because we work you very hard here.
You know, it became like
Yeah.
a daily habit for me.
Mm.
Just like eating, drinking, sleeping. So, as I told you, it's not that much effort anymore.
So just say 2 minutes what it is you do because maybe people don't know on the podcast.
It wasn't about me, it was about you.
I know, but my job is to interview people, so I'd rather ask you.
I feel embarrassed talking about myself
No,
sometimes.
who cares? But it's not about yourself. It's about what you're doing.
It's a very simple thing. It's granting the dreams for children with cancer. Whatever their dreams are, I just help them to make it come true. And most of their dreams are very simple, like they are. And it goes from a bicycle to a toy, or going to a trip to the seaside, or visiting a celebrity, and that's it. So it's so, for us, it's easy. For them, it's the world.
Yeah, and then you inspire people to donate the money.
Of course.
Just
People
and this is
feel-
where social media
Yes.
works. It's very helpful. You put the kids' pictures out on Facebook, and then
Yes.
people respond and want to help.
And people actually, most of them thank me for giving them the opportunity to help, because they want to help, but they don't know how.
This is something that's really important that you just said, because I think this is where our communications often fall short.
Yes.
We can get very good at providing information and maybe getting people to care, but then we leave them without anything to do.
Yes. Okay, what to do then?
How can I help?
How can I help?
Yeah. And you give them a way to help.
Of course. And even I even encourage people that you don't only help by money. You can come, you can support, you can contribute. And that's
Because you do
as
the birthday
important.
parties.
Of course,
and they
birthday
could come to the birthday
parties,
party.
with the clothing, distribution, with the different events, of course, and birthday parties, exactly. I'm glad you remember that. All
have
that,
it.
yeah. Well.
Yes.
So, Melissa, thank you so much for lending us your voice. And it is a true voice of impact. And I always wanted to interview you because I know that you're an inspiring person. Not because you're my boss, but but seriously, you are a true inspiration. And thank you so much for having the time for us here and sharing your voice and the voices of impact.
Well, thank you so much, Mohammed. It's so great to see and to come here and to see that you're doing a podcast using this modern means of reaching out to people to show the impact of the United Nations. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.